Many generations now, we have suffered. The Washichu we spoke to, but they don't hear. They're deaf. The women, the children, the old ones, they suffer. You from the cities, you are our warriors. Our warriors. They're deaf. We must now walk in the sacred way.
Shalom out there to all the elect. This is Elder Ricard, this is Elder Tasa Dagba, and welcome to another installment of the final American Indian Uprising in 2014 now. Okay, and the topic of this show is called Proving that the so-called Eskimos are in fact the tribe of Gad. Because we've had brothers out there, some of you brothers out there have actually asked us to do a show on this topic. So lucky that it took us so long to get around to actually doing the show, because we have other projects that we work on, but through the spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, we're actually able to get here and get this topic going, man, because it is a very good topic, okay? Now, number one, it was taught going back to the old school in 1 West, going back to High Priest Ariyah. He taught that the Eskimos, well actually I remember what Ariyah taught. He taught that, he said the so-called Eskimos, some of them are Gadites, but some of them are Japhet. Right? And Ariyah is the one who mainly taught that, but then the other guys, well, they learned that from Ariyah, and that's what was pushed in 1 West. They said, yeah, some of them, they didn't say all, he said some of them. He said some of the Indians of Alaska are Gadites, but you got Japhet mixed up in there, and some of them are Japhet. There's no scriptures proving that, man. Nope. And there's no documentation proving that. Number one, this is the main argument that I'm going to give, right? If those Eskimos, or the so-called Eskimos, are Japhites, right? How in the world did Japhet get up there? Right. How did Japhet get there? Where is it documented in the scriptures of Japhet coming over to a land where never man dwelt? It's not in the scriptures. But when you go in the Apocrypha, and we're going to bring that out in the Apocrypha, the history of how the 10 tribes came over here from the Assyrian captivity, it said they came over across the waters to a land where never man dwelt. And then it said in the scripture, in the Apocrypha, Arsareth, it was known as Arsareth, which is the so-called land of Canaan, which is America. America, this land here, the Americas, in the scriptures is known as the land of Canaan. Or in the Apocrypha they call it Arsareth. Yeah. Okay? Now, there was no documentation of Japhet coming over to this part of the world in the scriptures or anywhere else. Alright? You have something, and as a matter of fact, if possible, if one of the brothers that's in the studio here with us, the word Eskimo, we should look up the word. Somebody try to Google up the word itself, Eskimo.
You don't even have to, because the word Eskimo, basically, if you call a person from Alaska an Eskimo, they'll take that as like a fighting word, like you calling a Negro a nigger. You know, like a white man look at you and say, you fucking nigger. Because the word Eskimo was supposed to mean eaters of raw flesh.
Okay, the brother already got
Eskimo, and matter of fact, I'll read it out of the one of these things I got here. Let me see if I find it here.
So that's pretty much the definition of the word Eskimo.
That's what it's supposed to mean.
Which is a derogatory phrase. Okay? Which is a derogatory phrase.
Matter of fact, I'll just read this here, and this will probably like read into it.
And tell them where you got this from.
This is actually from Wikipedia. A lot of you might talk shit about Wikipedia, but I've checked other sources like Encyclopedia Britannica. With Encyclopedia Britannica, I got a little print up here. They only give you like a little paragraph, and then they want you to register and get a membership and pay money, which I'm not paying no fucking money for that shit. So I got the little bit that Encyclopedia gave you for free before making you pay for the rest. And the little bit that they gave me pretty much lines up with what Wikipedia says. Okay, so basically I'm going to just read some of this and we'll read into it. And it'll probably go into that about it being like a derogatory term. Let me see. It says Eskimo refers to the indigenous peoples of the Arctic and subarctic from eastern Siberia across Alaska, Canada, and Greenland, while specifically not including the First Nation peoples of Canada, the Athabascan tribes, or the Pacific Northwest Native American tribes of Alaska. It is also used in linguistic or ethnographic...
Now stop. They said Siberia. See, they're going off too on that. Because they're trying to say that Asia at one time was connected to the North American continent by what the white man calls the Bering Straits, or an ice bridge, or a land bridge, which never existed. So that was a lie. Okay? Because they want to say that the Native Americans, that we came out of Asia, which is really the so-called continent of Russia. Because Russia and Asia is in the same landmass.
That's right.
Okay? It's all connected. So they're trying to say that there was a bridge that connected the Asian continent, so-called what we know today as Russia or Asia, which China and all that is all connected to that.
Yep.
That's a lie. That bridge never existed. Because that's not how the so-called Native Americans got to this side of the world. The scriptures in the Apocrypha tell you how the so-called Native American tribes got here. That's number one. Okay? So those Alaskans, those so-called Alaskan natives, okay, they didn't come out of no Siberia. But it's giving you a synopsis of who these people are that's there now, which in the lands, Alaska, Canada, Greenland, okay?
Okay, it says Northwest Native American tribes of Alaska. It also...
The Northwest is dealing with Alaska, even going up into parts of Canada.
Right, Canada.
Or what we know today as Seattle.
Yep. Okay,
Seattle, Washington, going into Alaska. Even parts of Oregon. Go ahead.
It says, it is also used in linguistic or ethnographic words to denote the larger branch of Eskimo Inuit languages.
Inuit.
Right, it says Inuit. Inuit languages, the smaller branch being Inuit, contrary to popular belief, although the term Eskimo is considered by many to be pejorative, meaning it's a derogatory term. It says it is not linguistically speaking an offensive word. Alternate terms such as Inuit, Yupik have been proposed, but none have come into the Inupiat of Alaska. A third group, the Inuit, is related. The term Alaska Native refers to all indigenous peoples of Alaska, including Northwest Coast and Athabascan tribes. Then it goes on to say here about the migrations from Alaska to Siberia across the Bering Sea land bridge.
That's a lie.
Which is
that's
a lie.
The white man. Of course they're going to push those lies. That bridge never existed, okay? It never existed. That was a lie. The so-called white man made that up to debunk the fact of the Native Americans being Israelites, because James Adair proved that. So the white man had to come with his lies and saying, yeah, that was the Bering Strait Bridge, and that's how how would the white man know that? Because when the white man got here, we were already over here.
That's right. Where the fuck does he come up with that bullshit from? Because the natives, the Gadites and the Reubenites, was already over here. Mexican Indians, they was already over here before you fucking crackers came over here to the United States. And as a matter of fact, let's go back to the time of 1070 AD, when the first Viking voyages came over here to the Americas, and they established trade route with the Native American Indians.
And by the way, those Vikings were Jakes. They were so-called blacks.
That's right.
The real Vikings were black.
The Norsemen, yeah.
The Norsemen. Now, the white man will tell you, oh, God, that's crazy, because when you go up into those lands, Norway and Sweden, you see those blonde-haired, blue-eyed, red-haired crackers up there, because y'all came and took over those lands later on.
Yep.
But prior to that, those people were so-called blacks. So the real Vikings were black.
That's right.
We can prove these things. Nature knows no color line, but we can get Byzantine art, get the book Russian icons. We got the proof, been proven that. So the people that originally ruled Europe were so-called blacks. So not only did you so-called white people steal North America from Gad and Reuben and Ephraim and Issachar and the tribes, you stole Europe, all of Europe, from this Judah, Benjamin, and Levi.
And you stole it from the Japhites too, because Europe was actually the Japhites' habitation. That was their land. You stole it from Japhet too. You know? And another thing about the Vikings, they were the ones that mapped out North, Central, and South America. They were the ones who drew up maps for those land masses, and Columbus had access to those maps in the Vatican Library. The Vatican Library had a copy of those maps from the Viking voyages that were about 450 years before Columbus came over this way, going back to 1070 AD. You look up the name Leif Erikson. He was a Jake.
He was an Israelite.
And Columbus,
so-called black man. I'm sorry. So-called black man, so you can understand. He could have been from either Judah. He could have been from the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, or Levi. We don't know. But he was a so-called black man from one of the tribes of Israel. Go ahead, brother.
Yep. And
calling himself a Viking.
Yep. And they had trade routes established with the Native American Indians. And like I said, they mapped out North, Central, South America, even Canada. And the Vatican had those maps in their archive, and Columbus had those maps with him when he came over this way. So he wasn't looking for another route to get to India to get no spices. He knew exactly that the people over here on this side of the world, based off of the book of Ezra, were the 12 tribes of Israel. He knew that. Or the 10 lost tribes that went into the Assyrian captivity and then later sailed through the Euphrates into the Indian Ocean and came under the Horn of Africa and came up north and dispersed in South America, Central America, the different islands, which you call the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Haiti, so on, and the mainland North America itself spreading up into Canada. He knew that.
And we're going to read that in the Apocrypha in a little while.
Yep.
Okay? And furthermore, we're going to get deeper into this as the show progresses. First of all, for Japhet to be up in Alaska, let's ask the question, how could Japhet have gotten there? Now, okay, you could say it's plausible because Alaska's on the west coast of the United States. The highest, most northwestern coast. The highest, most northwestern coast of the United States. Above California, right? Above where Seattle, Washington, or what they call Seattle, Washington today. Now, when you go south, west of that, out into the Pacific Ocean, we have the Polynesian Islands, as they're known as. Which we know the people who live in those islands are Japhet. What am I talking about? Hawaii and those the Fiji Islands and all that stuff, Easter Island. Those are Japhet that's out there. And Japhet is all the way out there in the middle of nowhere in Australia, which is halfway around the other side, the bottom of the globe. That's why even the white men, they call Australia down under. Because it's almost at what they call the bottom of the globe. Now, it's not documented that those Polynesian people, which are Japhites, they had boats, but they weren't seafaring people. There's no documentation of them. Even the white man will document that they weren't seafaring people. Okay? They had canoes and boats to where they could navigate amongst themselves, amongst those islands and stuff like that.
Yep.
There was no way that they could take a boat from the because you could say, well, look, maybe that those Polynesians, they could have took boats and sailed from the islands. They was right there in the Pacific, so it's close, so they could have sailed right on up northeast up into Alaska. Number one, you had when you got further up into the Alaskan coast, you got icebergs all up in that region, which is dangerous.
That's right.
Okay, they would have to navigate around those icebergs. Furthermore, down in the Polynesian Islands where those Hawaiians are, it's a hot, warm climate. Those people weren't used to cold climates. Alaska gets extremely cold.
That's right.
So they didn't know what was waiting for them up in Alaska, even if they had boats. And they said, okay, if they had seafaring boats, and they said that they were going to sail from Hawaii or Easter Island or those Polynesian islands, and they were going to sail boats up into Alaska, all right? And if they knew that there was a landmass there, they wanted to get to it, if they sailed there, they would have had to deal. They weren't prepared. The climate they were from, how would they know what to expect when they got up to that other land?
That's right.
They would have all died anyway. The animals, the climate, they would have had to evade those icebergs that was all out in that region. Yep. The closer they got to that mainland. And why would they just go to Alaska? Because before you get to Alaska, you hit California, or what's known as California. They would have went and just migrated right there.
That's right.
So it doesn't make sense. And even the white man says that there's no documents of the Polynesians being seafaring people, then it would have been impossible for them to make. That trip would have been a highly unlikely, it would have been very illogical for them to make it. They wouldn't have made that trip. So I bring this argument up to say, when brothers taught that, or some of those so-called Eskimos are Japhet, brothers was just winging it, man. Even Ariel went off on that. Because they're heathenistic. Now, they do a lot of heathenistic things. They be up there eating whale meat, eating seal meat. But Israel in the whole, the Bible said the whole head is sick.
That's right.
They're Israelites, they're Gadites, but they're just bugged out. All Gad is bugged out. When you go out to South Dakota, to the plains, you got the Lakota and the Cheyenne, and them guys, they out there eating dog meat.
Yep.
When you go down to Florida, my tribe, the so-called Seminole Indians, Reuben, we down there in the goddamn Everglades eating alligator meat and turtle soup and rattlesnake meat.
Ain't supposed to be eating that.
So that means we're heathens too. Right? Because Reuben eats alligator meat. So how come nobody's saying, well, some of them Seminole Indians are heathens because they eat alligator meat?
Well, let me say this. Wait a minute. Let's deal with you Negroes. Negroes. All right? The tribe of Judah. A lot of you motherfuckers are heathens. You want to know why? A lot of you Judites, I hear that amongst Judites up here that came from the South, and they up here, whether they're in New Haven, Bridgeport, New York, New Jersey, talking about eating possum and eating raccoon, eating squirrel meat. So wait a minute. Those of you that are of the tribe of Judah, you a bunch of goddamn heathens too. Eating frogs' legs and shit, fried frogs' legs, turtle soup.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. So you're like the biggest heathens out there.
Pork.
Eating pork. Love that damn
wild
pork, man.
boar.
Shitlins.
When New York City over here, you go down to City Island in the Bronx.
Oh yeah.
You go in there and shit, and all them black and Hispanic women from the so-called Spanish-speaking tribes. When you go there, you don't get the fish and chips. Y'all get a pile of scallions, shrimps, crab legs, lobsters.
Crab legs.
That's heathenistic.
Yep.
And it's damn self. So they're not Israelites. They're some kind of heathens. All Israelites are heathens. You are heathens spiritually, man. The ones of you that are out there, the 2/3, you'll see you're all heathens. So let's get back into some more of the scriptures and some facts.
Right. I'm going to read something real quick. Jeremiah 2:27. It says, saying to a stock, thou art my father, and to a stone thou hast brought me
That's
forth.
Israel, worshiping all kind of false idols. It said to a stone. That's prophecy. Don't you got millions of Israelites out there worshiping Islam? You got Israelites that take a pilgrimage over them. You got so-called Negroes, so-called Puerto Ricans, and the other tribes that get involved in the religion of Islam, and they travel and will catch an airplane all the way over there to Egypt and make their way to Mecca and go around the Kaaba stone and worship a stone and bow down to a stone. You got Israelites of the Spanish-speaking tribes, man. You guys all, mainly the tribe of Ephraim and Simeon, Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans, you got little altars in your house. Some of you Israelites worship Buddha.
Yep.
A fat Oriental man. You worship these false idols that you make up yourself or that you got from the other nations or the so-called white man. A lot of you got the image of Cesare Borgia, the image of the white Jesus Christ in your house, and you worship that, man. Go ahead.
Saying to a stock, thou art my father, and to a stone, thou hast brought me forth. For they have turned their back unto me, and not their face.
You don't call upon the name of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah. You call upon these bullshit idols that you believe in. Like we mentioned. Buddha, Allah, okay? Jesus Christ, with the image of a white so-called Jesus Christ. And then here it is, we up here telling you the man you know as God is a so-called black man, and his son, who you call Christ, his real name is Yahweh Shai. I don't want to hear that. I can't deal with that. I can't get with that. You turn your back on the Most High. That's why he said he's going to turn his back on you. Go ahead, brother.
They have turned their back unto me, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble, they will say, arise and save us. But where are thy gods that thou hast made thee?
That pursues to Proverbs 1 and 22. Because when that time comes, the day of Jacob's trouble that we keep talking about, when you niggas, when the white man implement this martial law, and when they start making you take that chip and y'all start catching pure hell, and they cut these cities off, that's when y'all gonna be, oh, where's them brothers at? Where them brothers that was the GMS guys that was talking about all this stuff? But in that day, the Lord's gonna say, the hell with you, man. Go ahead.
It says, but where are thy gods that thou hast made thee? Let them arise, if they can, save thee in the time of thy trouble. For according to the number of thy cities are thy gods, O Judah.
That's right. So that's Israel got a lot of cities. You got Israel scattered from one part of this country to the next. That's how many got. There's thousands of Israelites, millions of Israelites. And you got cities all over the place where Israel live. You got a God for each damn city. So you niggas got all kind of gods. You niggas got gods that we don't even know about. That y'all worship. Money's a god. Your woman could be a god. Some of you niggas worship yourself as God. I'm talking about all the tribes. Okay? Amongst you so-called Native Americans, you got all these different bugged out philosophies and beliefs that you believe in, man. The green corn ceremony, the sun dance. Every summer you go out into these different so-called sacred areas up in the Black Hills out in South Dakota. You call it Pahasapa, and you go out there and you drum and you do the sweat lodge, but then you pierce from the so-called tree of life. And pierce your skin and offer blood. You offering blood to a false god. You ain't calling upon Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Same thing with Reuben, my tribe, the Seminole Indians. Primarily in the summertime, you got the green corn fast. And you give homage to the green corn woman, which is a god. The green corn woman. She was the one who introduced us to the green corn and provided prosperity for the people. That's all fables, man.
That's all it is.
And false gods. You don't do that's worshiping a woman. The green corn woman.
That's a harvest festival.
Exactly. This is going off. So we ain't looking to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. That's why you so-called Native Americans, the Most High is going to take a lot of y'all out. Okay? Let's go.
So that's it on it.
Now, let's go back to the main topic at hand.
Yeah, now getting back to the thing you were saying about the land bridge and them saying that the Native Americans are trying to equate them with being of Chinese descent and all that bullshit. Now, James Adair, History of the American Indian, he lived among the Native Americans for 40 years. And he wrote about the things that he's seen and he observed when he was amongst us for 40 years.
And that's a long, 40 years, that's a long damn time to be amongst some people.
Yeah.
So that means that man really got to know our people. 40 years?
A long time.
Hold on, I'm 41 years old.
I'm 40.
This man's 40. I was born in 72. So that means, let's say if that was today, James Adair, you mean from that means from 1972 up until 2014, he would have lived. That's a long time to live among somebody. You're pretty much a part of the family, man.
Yeah. 40 years.
Okay. That's for from the 70s till now. Okay.
That's a long time. Let me see. It says here, page 73. It says, some suppose the Americans, talking about the American Indians, to be descended from the Chinese. But neither their religion, laws, customs, agree in the least with those of the Chinese. This is what James Adair said. Who would know but him? He lived amongst us for 40 years.
Yeah, how could, so yeah, in other words, we're of Oriental, we're of so-called Asian descent because of that land bridge which led from so-called Asia, right, which that would lead right into Alaska and Canada.
Yep.
But all of a sudden when we got here, we just totally came up with a whole new way of ideology aside from the so-called Asians. There would be some kind of connection showing that we were connected to those people, or the so-called Hawaiians or the Japhetic people. Their customs and their beliefs are totally foreign from ours. There's no connection showing that the Native Americans of Alaska have any connection to the Polynesian people of the islands. Even the so-called white man brought that out in certain documentaries. Go ahead, brother.
Read it again.
All the Orientals.
It says, some have supposed the Americans to be descended from the Chinese, but neither their religion, laws, customs agree with those of the Chinese, which sufficiently proves they are not of that line. Besides, as our best ships now are almost half a year in sailing to China, or from thence to Europe, it is very unlikely they should attempt such dangerous discoveries in early time, with their supposed small vessels against rapid currents. So
you see that?
Talking about that the Chinese, they didn't have those big, gigantic, sophisticated type boats at that time that would enable them to sail from there. Plus, he's going to go on to say that even the currents from up north that way don't bring you down this way. So there's no way in hell that it could have happened. Now, he was saying about the small boats that the Chinese had was not fit to be sailing those rough seas like that. They'd have been swallowed up. That's what James Adair is saying.
And we're going to bring that back to the so-called Hawaiians, or the Polynesians.
Right.
Who are the Polynesians? I would say, well, when the producer puts the show up, he can show a map of the so-called western coast of the United States.
Right.
The Pacific Ocean is huge.
Vast.
From the west coast all the way to those islands are way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. That's a long ways.
Yeah.
By airplane, how long would it take to take a plane from California to Hawaii?
It takes a while.
That's a good few hours. We can go Google it up. Google it up. The Polynesian people of those Polynesian islands did not, just like the Chinese or the Orientals, they were not seafaring people. They didn't have boats sophisticated enough, and the currents don't take you that way.
I'll say this. It probably from New York to Hawaii is probably a 10, 11 hour flight. Now, to go from New York to California is probably like maybe, what, a 3-hour flight? And that's going 3,000 miles. From New York to Cali is 3,000 mile stretch across the United States, and that's probably about a 3-hour ride in a plane. If you're going by car, it's going to take you maybe 3 days or 4 days to go from New York to Cali, go 3,000 miles. By plane, I think it's 3 hours. So you figure it should take about maybe, I think, 10, 11 hours. What was it?
According to this, it takes
what, 5, 6?
5.5 hours to 6 hours to go from California to Maui.
Okay.
Okay, so that's to go from Cali to Maui. So from New York to Cali is about 3 hours.
Okay.
So you figure what, 8, 9 hours, close to 10 hours? You figure 8, 9 hours to go from New York to Hawaii.
No, but we're talking
from Cali to Hawaii.
So from California to okay, but that's flying on an aircraft.
Yeah.
On an airplane with those high-powered jets.
Yeah.
But that's still 5 hours.
Yeah.
So by boat, how long would that take? Okay?
By a boat that has a sail on it, not a boat that has...
Not a boat with propellers and motors, a boat with a sailboat.
You sitting there like this paddling in the water, man.
Paddling. They didn't have...
arms will fall off.
And the Polynesians didn't have, that's documented fact, that they didn't have sailboats. They didn't have that technology. They had those canoes and rowboats. They were tribal people.
Yep.
They had boats to get around from those different islands to the next island.
Yep.
So how in the world could the Polynesians have made it from those islands, or even from Australia up into Alaska? And why would they just hover up to Alaska? Which debunks the fact of what Ariad taught about some of the so-called Eskimos being Japhet. There's no way in the world that they could be Japhites. So all of those so-called Eskimos are Gadites. They're just Gadites up in there, caught up in heathenistic ways.